Welcome to Season 2020, Episode 6, Pure or Weird. In this episode, the 4 potential race calendars, bike electronics, the devil's candy, and another round of the Manuel Incident. This is the Pecino Report. Hello and welcome to the Pecino Report, the official podcast of pecinogp.com, hosted by me, Dave Gill. Look, it's been another week that we've all successfully survived isolation, and I'm here with my 3 co-hosts to review the week in MotoGP. Once again, Manuel Pecino has not stopped scouring the interwebs for MotoGP news. I'm going to turn this episode on its head. I'm actually going to introduce Manuel Pecino first. Manuel, how are you, my friend? Welcome to your own podcast.
That's crazy talk.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Front day.
How are you going down under? Here we are a little bit better than before. It seems that from in 2 days, kids can go out to have a walk for 1 hour. So things are getting better.
Wow, good.
I don't know if I am included in the category of kids, but I feel like...
Close.
I feel like
Eternal kids in the mind, it's all that matters.
if I use the head, my super head with the ventilator, maybe I can go out.
Ladies and gents, we'll post the pictures up of how we're recording one this week. The screenshots were quite amazing.
I just want to
It
see
is the
Manuel on a
weekend.
swing.
It's the weekend.
Manuel on a swing will be,
Playing
that will make my
hopscotch.
year.
Stu, how are you, mate? What's been going on in your life in MotoGP?
I'm doing very well, Dave. I hope everyone out there is having a fantastic week. It's been another crazy week of isolation all around the world. I got a great response for my facepalm of the week last week. And so I just want to bring up quickly as we go around the traps. This week I heard that Andra is regretting his departure from Ducati's MotoGP team in 2016. And if anyone doesn't know, that noise there is me face palming big time. It's like, really,
Hang on, I didn't hear
Andrea?
that. Can you do it again?
Here we go. There it is. It's a very satisfying noise. Maybe you shouldn't keep driving into your teammate. And I'd say maybe you regret leaving Ducati. I'd argue that perhaps you didn't leave Ducati. Maybe you were asked
shown the
to
door.
leave Ducati. And you moved on to, let's say, different things at the time. So that's my facepalm of the week, is for Iannone saying that he regrets leaving Ducati in 2016.
We all have those regrets in our life, but some more than others.
I regret leaving Ducati as well. That's right, yes.
Andra, how are you, my lovely?
I'm
the
good.
essential part of this podcast next to the big man himself. How are
And
you?
I'm looking the manliest out of everyone in my
That's a
hat.
fantastic flat cap you're wearing there, Andra. I like.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it is a flat cap. And I'll say to everyone here, in the green room just beforehand, Andra and I were having a bit of a discourse, and I saw her with a flat cap, and my first comment was, where are you taking your whippet? Is your whippet going for a shite?
But if I did, I would whip it good.
She was taking her whippet for its morning constitutionals.
I want someone to explain what Dave's got on his head.
Look, we'll let the listeners figure that
That
one
defies
out.
explanation.
Manuel,
That's right. You're going to have to check out the photo. It's worth it, I promise.
it's very much worth it.
I have to say my news now.
Oh, go for it.
I've advanced from my iPhone MotoGP game to the Xbox MotoGP 20 game.
Wow.
I'm still shocking.
But you've come a long way in a week. Imagine 3 weeks from now, you'll be actually riding MotoGP bikes.
Totally. Probably racing.
The question I have is, looking through the Insta feed, how much of that time have you actually got versus how much has your husband got?
Oh my goodness.
Ooh, good
Okay, yeah. So
question.
he just before we came in here, I was sitting there wondering when I get to have a turn of my game. But I just got
called it my game. You realise that, right?
Yeah, well, it's not. He messaged me to say that he totally just won and Le Mans was his bitch.
Wow.
Did he say Le Mans or did he say?
Well,
Le
that's
Mans?
how I'm reading it.
Le Mans.
How do you say
Now
it?
I got it.
Hang on.
Le Mans. That's
Typo. That man was my.
Andra, if you talk it that way, you will never get in your life to Le Mans.
I'm just an Aussie girl. I'm just an Aussie girl. But anyway, but realistically, in about 3 weeks, I'm hoping that I can complete one lap without falling off.
Well, better than me.
So does Cal Crutchlow.
Oh no! In 3 weeks, Cal Crutchlow hopes he's sitting on a beak in Tunisia somewhere.
True. Manuel.
By the way, Stu. Let me just explain you the Iannone story.
Yes, please.
Because he really decided to leave Ducati because he was the one who was chosen between Dovizioso and Iannone.
Right.
Ducati chose
after the incident where they had the impact and he nerfed Dovi, I recall he had a really good result after that, and they actually wanted him to stay.
Yeah, he won. Remember, he won in Austria in a very exciting final lap with his teammate, with Dovizioso. So at the end of the station, when Jorge Lorenzo was arriving, they offered the second bike to Iannone. But he considered that the money was too low and he rejected it and went to Suzuki. And then, therefore, Dovizioso had the chance to keep riding the Ducati. That's the truth.
Yep.
So he decided.
As we've spoken about before, he took the contract and it's gone down ever since. But, wow. And now look where he is, on the Aprilia. Wow.
Yeah, he could have imagined, because he is I always have said that Iannone is one of the most talented rider in the championship by far. This is 100%. The problem is that he's not a full-time racer. Let's say that he's a weekend racer. The rest of the time he likes to party, to whatever.
Right. So when you say part-time racer, like obviously a lot of racers like to party. From James Hunt forwards, obviously a lot of them. But he takes the partying to an extreme, does he? He likes the lifestyle.
Yeah, but look, if I go quickly through the riders in MotoGP, I can't see any other one that is into the party. You know what I mean? So the others are super professional. If you go through Marquez, Viñales, Dovizioso, they are not party boys.
Yep.
They are professionals.
And look, to be honest, the league needs more of those. It needs more personalities. Realistically, I, for one, vote that we get rid of all the robots and just have party boys. We have a complete new league just of party boys. Wow, see where that would lead us in a few weeks.
But I'm kind of surprised because it's that whole work hard, play hard. Like what they do is so intense. Yeah. How do they balance it out?
They don't. It's the sponsors want winners.
Yeah.
The only way to do that is to drop.
They need to drink some ouzo and wear a funny hat with me.
Dag nabbit, for sure. And do you think the rap that he's gotten for quite a while, they what they called him the missile and all sorts of things because he was taking people out left, right, and center. But if you go back and have a look, any champion in their preemptive years, in their formative years, there's a very clear path that you can see where they ride beyond the limit and they crash. But when they're testing the limits of the bike and they get to a point where they get the opportunity on the same bike and they stop crashing and they are able to then win races. You look at your Marquez's, your Stoners, very, very similar. So do you think maybe Iannone maybe had that opportunity, but he was pulled away from it too soon, or was he not at the same level?
He pulled himself out of that picture himself, and later on I tell you a consequence of Iannone's behavior inside the Ducati's contracts that every rider.
Why can't you tell us now?
Wow. Yeah. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we've spoken a few times about how Manuel's eyes have been sparkling a few times here, and we've got another one of those moments. Okay, Dave,
I'm actually dying to dive into from the news of this week. I'm bursting.
This is just an intro. It's gone way too far, way too deep. Let's keep going. We'll put a pin in this, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come back to it.
Manuel, you shocked me in just prior to recording this by explaining that there is 4 potential scenarios being looked at that could play out for the 2020 season.
Yeah, for me, it was even a surprise for me when I got this. Let's go quickly through these 4 scenarios, okay? The first one is the Lux starting to race in Germany the 20th or the 20th of June, I think, okay? This is the first scenario. The decision will be taken the 27th of April. That means in 3 days, in 3 days from now. Okay, this is the first scenario. So it would start in Germany, and then Germany, Netherlands, Finland, and so on. Okay, so that would be a very good championship with many races. This is the scenario which I think will not happen because we are just 3 days from that deadline. The second scenario would be start in August. Okay, then it would be August, maybe in Brno, Czech Republic, then Austria, then probably Misano and Mugello. Some other circuits would be put in the middle of the actual calendar. Okay, this is a scenario number 2. Scenario number 3 is starting in September. Starting in September would mean, and Dorna is thinking in racing September and October in Europe, and then they have to leave the continent because the winter arrives and there's no way to race. Then November and December, because the championship will stick up to December, they say that they would race in the heat. In the heat, and at that time would be Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, and probably Qatar. And the 4th scenario, that is really the astonishing, would start in November. So in November, when there are only 2 months to finish the year.
Yes, and this is the one that blew my head apart. Yeah.
Yeah, in this case, the championship, they would pretend to make a championship with 10 races. And the interesting thing, or the surprising thing in this story, is that they are thinking or planning in racing in the same circuit 3 different up to 3 races. I mean, not in the superbike format, at least this is what I have been told, but in 3 different weekends. And these 2 circuits, I know that this format has been presented to 2 circuits. One is Qatar and the other one is Sepang. This would make 6 races, and then they will last only other 4.
So if this has been presented, is there any more depth in this? Are they talking about separate qualifying sessions for every single weekend, or do they continue results from every weekend? There's no more depth of info?
I really don't know. I know what I explained. And another thing is that if in September there is no firm decision taken of any of this scenario, in September they would cancel straight the championship.
Okay, so September is really the cutoff for...
But I have to say that the inputs that arrive are every time more positive.
One of the comments that I saw from Pit Byra in the last couple of days, he was explaining that whilst the numbers were still increasing, no one can speak of MotoGP season, but as we're starting to see the numbers roll off, there's obviously the optimism is starting to come back to Dorna and the championship. So this is absolutely fantastic to hear.
Yeah, I am a believer. I hope that at the end we will race, sincerely. There was a certain moment that I was quite pessimistic, but I think it lasts less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
But it's still April, and I think, everyone's doing pretty well, aren't they? It seems to be improving across the board, and it's still April.
I've listened a couple of times to the previous podcasts, Andra, and you were saying that you were excited that you actually get to see a real race. So
I actually am, because as we know, it's been a bit of a build up to see, and I've watched previous races, but to watch a live actual race, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic, pumped.
I know, Manuel.
Andra, when, because you are going to do this, when you see a race at Phillip Island, it will be like for the humanity before Christ and after Christ, you know? You will have before Phillip Island and after Phillip Island.
Yeah, life-changing
exactly.
moment.
And you're all going to be there with me along the way.
Welcome to the real world.
Yes, indeed.
And I know that track now, because that's the only track that I've raced on the game, so I know that track now. I think I know the corner you were talking about, Dave, where people crash. I crashed on all of them, but I can see which one's probably the biggest crash corner.
Indeed. And look, I'm starting to see the same thing here through, like, as you all know, I follow the F1 almost as much as I follow MotoGP. And I'm starting to see the same optimism now coming through from F1 as well, that they're starting to talk about potential dates in late June for maybe tests, July, August, which is really, really encouraging for motorsport as a whole. And well.
Yes, because look, you have to realize that F1 and MotoGP is a very difficult layout, because other sports, they are basically national, okay? If the National Football League or the NBA, it's just inside the country. But these shows have to cross so many borders, and the actors of the show, they arrive from all over the world. So if they manage to make it work, then means that the whole planet is starting to move again.
That's exactly right. But with it being such a global sport, it's so much more difficult, isn't it? Yeah, Andra.
What was that post the other day? They were loading. Was it from MotoGP? They had that post of loading the bits onto the plane.
Yeah, finally the last few bits coming back from Qatar. Yeah.
Oh, on off. So is that what we've talked about, where everything's locked up? They're actually.
Yeah. I saw the KTM guys were going, yes, bring us our parts home.
Is there any noise coming out of the factories yet, now that Dorna is putting this on the table as a potential? Like you said last week that they were putting potential flight plans in with Emirates to see who would fly and who wouldn't. Is there any development on that? Are they starting to do cargo manifests up? Or?
Yeah. Look, the last I know, I don't know if we have commented this in our previous podcast, is they will basically have 4 points around the world to collect people, right? 4 points. Yeah, hubs, exactly. That's the word. These 4 hubs, I imagine, it's easy to imagine, one will be in Spain, one should be in Italy, the other one in Japan, and the 4th one is, I don't know, in somewhere in Europe, maybe in the UK or in Central Europe. But these 4 flights will fly straight to the place where the Grand Prix is going to happen.
Might even be Dubai as a central hub.
Sorry? No.
That might even be Dubai as a central hub between the East and the West.
The information I got is that Qatar Airways has offered the planes, not Emirates.
Okay, so Doha, maybe.
Doha, yeah.
Interesting.
It's a very ambitious format, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially that last one. The prospect of having MotoGP live on Christmas Day excites me like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yes, please. Boxing Day, imagine that. Should we watch the test?
I'd send the kids away for the day for that. Keep it down in there. I'm watching the telly.
I go back to my wish that maybe we could celebrate Christmas down in Rio de Janeiro, in Copacabana or somewhere like this, no? I insist.
I don't know what your religion is, Manuel, but I am fully supportive of it, and I'd like to know more. Thank you very much.
Manuel, it was something we were also talking about prior to recording this was the outtakes from the virtual GP, and there was some joking back and forth between Taka, Maverick and Marquez, joking that Japan had stopped work, but Honda hadn't because they'd locked up all their employees in the factory, and that development was continuing. That Maverick was not happy.
That's the typical Marquez off-track racing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yep.
I loved seeing their banter. That was so good to watch.
The thing that struck me on that was that they were talking about the development freeze and the fact that the 2020 and essentially 21 were going to be developmentally locked out for MotoGP. Something that we've been talking about behind the scenes was not only from a structural and mechanical perspective, but also from that development would also cascade down into electronics, wouldn't it, Manuel? Is they're not allowed to develop electronics, or is that purely?
No, look. Something is developing, and a different thing is working on what they have. You know, because as you know, the electronics is compulsory. It's a closed software they have. What they can do is working on that software and try to understand it better. This is something that is free. In electronics wise, basically they cannot develop. They can, improve, but not develop. Improve what they have. So it doesn't affect.
So there's a margin. There's a difference between improving and developing new stuff.
Yeah, because look, the story with the electronics was explained by me so fantastically. It was, look, the electronic that was basically taken from Ducati, right, to make it compulsory for all teams, is like working with a Macintosh and a PC, with a Mac and a PC. Both computers, you can do the same thing with both computers. But if you work with one, it's very difficult to understand the other one. This is exactly what happened with the Japanese. They had a system that, let's call it, was the PC system. And then Dorna adopted the Mac system. So suddenly all the Japanese who were not less clever than the one who built the Mac, they had to start to learn. And this was the big advantage Ducati had in the last years. So now...
Wow, so they're very much closed-loop systems. And similar to VHS versus Beta, you buy into one, and if you're on the other horse, then you've missed out. And it seems like the Ducati was the one that was the horse that was backed by Dorna, and the Japanese have missed out, and now they're just starting to catch up again.
Yes, and you realize something, and it's also linked to the electronics, and not many, I haven't heard this that much, that if you see the last year, Ducati is winning less and less races, or let's say that the other are catching up. And it's down to the electronic,
indeed.
The advantage Ducati had in electronics. They don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. So they have to look for another different things to fight the Japanese.
Yeah. And that was that two big advantages was the straight line speed, the torque of the engine, and the electronics that gave them very much that whole shot of that straight off the line speed as well, wasn't it? And so the other factories are starting to compensate now.
Look, if you think Ducati is always a step ahead of the rest, you know, but they have to be, and they have invent things because, as we have spoken, the size of the companies, the Japanese companies, compared with Ducati, is so immensely bigger.
Yeah, the sheer scale, yeah.
Yeah, so Ducati has to invent things, and it's like the aerodynamics. Before Gigi Dall'Igna invented the aerodynamics, there were no aerodynamic division inside the racing departments, you know. And now all of them had to create an aerodynamic division.
Just out of curiosity, for Andra's sake and for mine as well, how much of an overall part of the package have the electronics become? Are they up there with the tyres can make or break? Do the electronics make or break a bike these days without just being at 100%? You don't have a chance of winning?
Yes, absolutely. You said very right. I think the first point would be the tires. They don't depend on the bike, on the constructor, or the manufacturers, and then comes the electronic. The electronics has turned into the most important stuff on a bike. Okay, you have to consider that actually the horsepower these engines are providing are around 280 HP. and this is only control. You can control this only with electronics. Okay. Look, the other day I had a chat with Carlos Checa, who is a Spanish rider, and he started with the MotoGP, and then he explained me things that at the beginning, the first MotoGP down in 2002, the electronics were just very basic. For example, look, he explained me something very funny. You know Brno circuit, okay? There is a long straight and
Czech Republic.
a long straight and then a fast right-hander. So the first bikes, 4-stroke bike, when they cut the engine at the end of the straight, he said, we didn't have to use the brakes. I didn't brake because the engine brake was so strong that the bike just, whoa. So, and he told me, imagine this at this level that I wasn't using the brakes.
Wow, it's like riding a superbike again. Yeah.
and now, look, I have now electronics has turned basically into a AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
Because look, I have some images. It's a shame that on the podcast we can show them, but you can see. Look, you just imagine a bike getting out of a corner. Okay, the rider opens the gas. The bike starts to slide from the back wheel. So automatically the sensor that the electronic is now the brain of the engine. Okay, through the sensors, the bike is detecting, the rider is getting in trouble. He may get in trouble. So let's give a hand to him. So they cut the power until the bike decides that it's not dangerous anymore. Okay.
So it's taking that control away from the rider and it's making its own decisions. He can open his right hand as much as he wants when he's leaned over in that corner and coming out of the corner. But the bike will say, no, you're still at 45 degrees and you're asking me for full throttle. You can't have full throttle right now.
Yeah.
You're going to have this incremental percentage of throttle until we get out of the corner.
Yeah, and let's go on with that maneuver. So he starts to slide. The bike starts to decide what he's going to apply, which power. Okay, then when the situation is perfect, according to the parameters that the bike has, the ECU has, then the bike starts to move forward, not sliding anymore, okay? Then the bike says, okay, you are free, full power. What happens? You have full power? Again. No. It starts, the anti-wheelie, the front wheel starts to...
the anti-wheelie starts to come in. So the different sensor starts to come in.
And then the brain says, my rider is in danger again. The brain cuts the power until the front tire touches the ground again. So the rider, he can do whatever he wants. But it's the AI that's on the bike which decides.
So playing devil's advocate, where's the talent?
I was just thinking I could ride one.
Yeah, exactly.
So I could in 3 weeks.
That's the thing.
No problem.
So
it's very easy. You set up the IA. You set up.
Right.
Okay. You can push it further. So when you decide when the brain is starting to think instead of you.
This was going to be my question. Of there are riders out there now that are pushing in ways that I haven't seen. Quattararo comes straight to mind of the fact that he pushes a front into a corner where the front is physically sliding, and this is something that is normal for him. How do you teach an AI how to do that and to give the rider that feel?
Yeah, there's this new breed of aliens starting to come through that are pushing this stuff. Yeah,
this is very interesting. It's I can say the typical question. This is a very interesting question. You know?
Do we want to go back?
I'm going to borrow my hat.
For Andra's sake, do we just want to go back and give it a little bit more baseline of the questions
if you
that
can,
we're getting
I'm
into?
completely lost at the
Dave?
moment.
No, I'm willing to hand over to the master of where all this began.
No, because Andra, the story is very simple. I don't know if you understood it, but the story is very simple. Again, the bike has a brain that thinks always in the safety of the rider. You know, and this brain you can program.
I suppose it's like your vehicle with your ABS brakes and your...
Exactly.
special reversing without you having to do it. And but as you were
predictive
talking before,
braking on the freeway that cars have these days, the AI,
But all I keep thinking is, when I've seen the riders talk to the engineers or whatever, I think of it mechanically, but it's a whole other. There's so much more to it.
Yes, look, just going quickly back to the front wheel. The front wheel is the only area that is still a rider area. There are no sensors to control the front wheel. There are no sensor. The ABS is forbidden in racing. So far, it's out of the rules. So this is the only place where the rider itself can make a difference. Okay.
What was the wheelie thing you mentioned before?
The wheelie is when you accelerate exiting a corner. As the power is too much, the front wheel starts to how do you say in English?
It comes up off the ground.
To come up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, like a wheelie.
It's what the majority of...
There's literally a gyroscopic sensor in the bike that will detect that the front wheel is coming up and the bike is physically rising, and it will say, okay, I need to cut the power slightly to stop the front wheel lifting off the ground. And so it will again electronically cut the power to the back wheel.
So is that because as they're braking coming into the corner?
Yep, when they brake coming into the corner, they might start locking up wheels and that sort of thing, and then the AI will say, I'm locking up wheels and I'm leaning over and I'm going to cut the power to certain things, and then as they come out of the corner and they try to put the power on with the throttle, as soon as they put the throttle on and it gets traction at the rear wheel, they're gonna naturally do a wheelie. And so the bike will have a gyroscopic sensor that says, hey, you don't want to do a wheelie because you're not going to get two wheels on the ground. It's not good traction. And so it's going to cut the power just ever so slightly just to bring the front wheel back onto the ground. And so they've got two wheels of contact patch back on the ground again. These are all the electronic AI sensors that we're talking about.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like we were talking, and I think in our last episode about Agostini and Halewood and all these older riders.
Even later than that, even your Doohans and Criviers in the late 90s.
You can't even compare them to now.
Nothing like that.
Because if one of our guys now got on one of those bikes back then, or they jumped on these bikes, it's
that's exactly right.
Story.
Probably the bikes now are quite easier to ride than in the past. Very much easier.
Yeah, and you saw those guys that were in that transition period between the end of the two strokes and the start of the four strokes. A lot of them were saying that exactly that. The bikes are easier to ride. The reason that Crivier didn't really ever beat Doohan was because he couldn't get that last little bit of control of the two-stroke bike that Doohan could get. And so when the four strokes started to come in and there was that little bit of extra control that was able to be there, it brought a lot of new riders into the fold.
I could see Manuel biting his tongue there. I'm desperate to hear the reply to that. So
look, because easier means that you can push further,
more indiscriminately. Yes.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean that. The actual rider have a easier time than the others. No, the thing is that the actual rider can push further than the others one, but it's still super difficult. You know what I mean? So not saying, okay, Schwanz, they were more better than the actual one because their bikes were more difficult. No, the thing is that the actual riders can push much further the bikes than the other ones.
It was just a completely different way of doing things, and they had to interact with the vehicle they were on, with the bike they were on, in a completely different way. That's right. Yeah.
Andra, if you imagine how difficult it is to set up this AI, because this AI works different in every corner, and not only in every corner. A corner is divided in three parts. Okay, one corner. You imagine one corner. Entry, middle of the corner and exit. And with electronics, you can adapt exactly what you need to every part of this corner. So this is so difficult. And this is why, for example, look, this is why the electronic has increased the cost of MotoGP huge. Because now behind of what you see in the box, you see the box, okay? That what we see. if you could once get just behind, you will see a line of engineers sitting on computers. Because look, the other day I was speaking also with the chief mechanic of Aprilia at this moment, and he explained me, look, our job as chief mechanics or crew chiefs, let's say, crew chiefs, because they are, it's basically, we are a bridge between the rider and all these engineers that sit behind. A crew chief, actually, he does nothing on the bike. He just listens to the riders and try to translate what the riders says to him to the engineers. And they are in the back who set up everything every time the rider goes out. So the cost of this is not that much the software, it's all the people, the specialized people, all these engineers that before didn't exist.
How many in a team? How many are part of that?
Engineers, I don't know, dependent on the factory. So the big factories have more. But for example, just to check, there is one guy who just does the mappings. Andra, that is very difficult. Well, there are many people working on this electronics. Many. In fact, I tell you something. In the past, I don't know if it worked like this. Ducati had a big satellite antenna. You say an anthem? On the track, the bike got in the garage, they transmitted the information to Italy, wherever they were, to Italy. In Italy, the engineer were sitting in their offices on the computer, bang! And then...
That's what I was saying. Yeah, there's all the behind-the-scenes people that you don't see there at the track.
And this, imagine the cost of having this transmission, the people sitting in Bologna the whole weekend.
Yep.
The cost is crazy.
This is F1 level stuff that we're talking about now. That's right. You've got an entire team sitting back at the factory, wherever it is, analyzing data live and potentially changing things on the bike. Yeah.
So can they monitor the bike while they're racing?
No.
Can they see stats, or is it purely...
That's forbidden. They just can download the data when they arrive in the garage.
Okay.
So is there any push to develop this even further, or is this a part of the development freeze that the factories have agreed to?
No, for disgrace of the Japanese factories and the good for the Italian, this was frozen when the compulsory software was introduced. Because before everyone had his own system. Okay, once again, the Italians had Magneti Marelli. That's a very strong brand. Yamaha was working, I think, with Mitsui, and Suzuki with others. And Honda, once again, had their own electronics. But now, trying to freeze the cost, because this would have been endless. To freeze the cost, now they have limited that to a certain software.
So this is essentially the question that I was leading to. Is that even though you can freeze a development around a certain component, have there been factories that have been able to exploit grey areas? The one that I push to would be Ducati, and I've heard you speak in many forums that the salad box on the back of the Ducati is almost viewed as a second ECU. Or a second brain on that bike. Are the factories finding ways and means of getting around these restrictions, or has Dorna done a good job of capturing this and essentially forcing the teams to develop elsewhere?
Yes, this is also a very interesting story because, look, when you have a rule, there are always some holes in the rule. And this, the Italian, they are especially creative. So they have been always looking for a backdoor, but every year this rule has been rewritten to try to cut this. Now I think in this moment the rules are quite well done, so there is no place to get through that backdoor. But you never know, with the Gigi Dall'Igna, Who knows?
This is why we come to the master for these questions, because if anyone is going to unearth the truth behind this, it will be Manuel Pecino. So we'll keep checking back in with you on that one. Look, I'm going to move on to what's rapidly becoming my favourite segment within these podcasts. We can only be talking about one thing. It is the Manuel Incident. It's where the three co-hosts present a personality from the MotoGP paddock to Manuel. He gets to describe them in one word, and with that, a positive or a negative memory that comes with that individual. So I'm going to...
This is so my favourite part of this whole podcast.
You torture me with one word. You are torturing me. This is unfair.
I even laugh myself when I listen to episode 5.
This is why I maintain it's one phrase. I'll give you
so, Andra, on that note, if you could lead off with yours, and to be fair, neither Stu or I know the personality that you're going to choose, so even I'm looking forward to this, so go for it.
All
right, let's hope I know. I was really impressed with how everyone introduced theirs last week, so I'm going to try and do mine like an American TV Jeopardy host. And please be patient with me, because obviously I have no idea what I'm talking about. So the person I've chosen today, he's won Moto2 in 2015 and 16. In 2017, he became a member of the Tech 3 Yamaha.
Yes.
Is it a team?
It is.
Did I say team? Is that right, Stu?
Spot on.
Thank you. I'm learning. See, I'm doing well. 2018, he announced that he was riding for KTM. In August 2019, he announced that he would not be riding for KTM any longer in 2020. And then in September of that same year, KTM announced that he wouldn't be riding the remaining 6 events for that year. And that test rider, Mika Kallio, was taking his place.
You should see the grin on Manuel's face. He's joined the dots. He knows who we're talking about.
He knows who it is.
yeah.
And then the next point I have is a Vintia Ducati where he will find his place? Who's going to answer first?
Who is Manuel?
Johan Zarco, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. Oh, thank God I did better than last week when it could have been an option of about 4 different people.
Look, just before we go on to Manuel's answer, have you had a look at any photos of Mr. Zarco, of Johan? Is he hot or is he not?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, he's way too old for me.
No.
Who's Zarco?
He's
older than 16, clearly.
He's not Valentino Rossi.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay. Manuel, Johan Zarco, one word to describe.
In positive or in negative?
It doesn't matter. It's your word.
What comes to mind first?
No.
A positive.
No.
A positive.
A positive and a negative.
How good are your lawyers?
It's a unique character.
Oh, okay.
Is that positive or negative? I'm not sure.
In what way is it unique? How does he stand out from his peers?
Look, Zarco is unique. He has a character. For example, for giving you will put your description by yourself. He was, for example, and he slept when he was in Moto2 as Moto2 rider. He didn't go to hotels during the Grand Prix. He slept on the floor, in the back of the boxes, on the track, on the team track. He slept for maybe 4 or 5 years on the sofa in the living room of his manager.
Did he not want to spend money, or is there a reason behind this to be close to it?
Yeah, he's completely focused. He, until 1 year ago, he didn't have mobile phone. He didn't social media. You know, he was like a Martian, somebody who arrived from, but he's a very nice guy. He plays piano, for example. He sings. He lived until last year or before last year with an old man in an apartment where he rented a room.
Hang on, with an old man, not his grandfather.
No, just an old man.
Random old man.
And he was telling that, okay, at the dinner they sat at the table, they ate soup together, and they chat. You know, he's completely an outsider. But
He sounds very enlightened.
Yeah,
He's a New World French guy.
he's,
Well done.
And you say that there isn't personality in the paddock.
no, he is a unique,
exactly.
unique personality. Unique.
I want to know more about this guy now.
It's-
Yeah, for sure.
But this has, and then he takes decisions like leaving KTM in the middle of the season and, how do you say, not wanting the money. You know, he thinks in a different way.
So he's doing nothing for fame, nothing for fortune, popularity, for what people think it's a whole other.
He raised, you know, it's a real outsider. You know what I mean?
So he's pure. He's quite pure.
Somebody,
He sounds incredible.
well, you can call it pure or strange. I don't know.
Pure or weird? Ladies and gentlemen, you take your pick.
Different to the most of us, so
Ladies and
strange.
gentlemen, there's our episode title.
Pure or weird?
Pure.
Question mark.
Strange. Let's say strange.
Pure
Ah.
and strange.
So can you explain to
strange.
me, because obviously from what I've looked up, he had the potential to come in and just be such a standout, but he didn't quite get there. What is it? What is it that stopped that happening, or is it yet to come?
He is I wouldn't qualify him under talented rider. He's a fast rider.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he takes decision in a very different way. You know, even when things don't go well, he always surprises with attitudes and determinations that we will say what. But many people like him because he is different or pure. You know, because
True. Yeah.
he does things like we think that, like Robin Hood. You know, we say something like this.
So just to review him against his teammate, you look at the results across 2017, 2018 that he got versus his teammate at Tech 3 Yamaha. If he's not that much talented, more talented than the rest of the field, why do you think there was such a big discrepancy in results between what he got and what his teammates at Tech 3 got?
No, look, I'm not saying that he's the less talented because he's twice world champion. Remember, twice Moto2 world champion. Talented, I'm comparing him, for example, with Fabio Quartararo, who is much younger than him and has the same skills. I can compare him with Joan Mir, young guys, okay?
Oh, don't get me started on Joan Mir.
So
Dave knows how much
I don't want to say that Zarco has not the talent, but he's not one of
the 1% aliens.
Yes, exactly. He's a good.
Could he have stayed at a lower level and kept winning?
Yeah, but he had done the job. After 2 titles, when you want to go to the next step and check yourself and see how good you are.
Okay.
I'm bursting again to get mine in front of Manuel, so I'm just going to jump in there. We'll move on from Mr. Zarco. So Manuel, my member of the paddock is a former professional motocross racer, so that narrows it down a lot. He's German. He's competed in motocross world championships from 1989 to 2003. And this is where the giveaway is. Unfortunately, he had quite a severe accident in 2003, riding a KTM. He's now the sports director for KTM. And I am talking about...
Yes, KTM sports director. He is Pete Byrer.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I don't... Is he German or is he Austrian?
It had German on his bio.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, Pete Byrer, yes. And he... What do you want to describe him?
Yeah, the one word that you just...
One word.
One word.
This is very good. This one is easy. He is super passionate.
Passionate.
Super. He likes racing, like all the brand. KTM is a brand where there is no, look, all like racing, but nobody
It's a family.
has a DNA in racing like KTM. You know something very interesting? In KTM, the engineers, the average age of the engineers, they are very young. And on weekends, they go doing enduro riding all together.
And this is different to the rest of the teams. They don't engage in this.
No, but I mean they practice themselves they ride and compete and whatever. So I can't see the Japanese doing this, for example, or Gigi Dall'Igna doing motocross.
I can't picture Gigi and Davide Tardozzi doing that together. Andra,
I've got to butt in with a very. This is a question to assist our listeners that are a little bit uneducated. Yeah. These endurance races I keep hearing about, can you just quickly explain to me what they are? Is this like a 24-hour race?
It's a long-distance race. That's the word, a long-distance race. And the races, they may go from 8 hours up to 24. And there are others that are in the middle, 12 hours. And this is
So on a track?
Yeah, on a track. Then it's a different championship called EWC, Endurance World Championship.
So it's a team, obviously, they switch out.
The team normally, depending if it's an 8 hours, it's a two-rider team. If 24 hours, it's a 3-rider team.
And how often can they swap, or do they only ride once each, or is there?
No, it's free, but I think that there has been a minimum that all riders in the list have to ride at least one stint, I think.
Yeah, each rider has to do at least one stint, and depending on the format, there may be.
So 8-hour race, 2 people, 4 hours each.
Yeah.
And they can switch hour for hour, or they could do 4 hours straight,
and in 8 hours.
However, they as a team.
That's a whole other way.
Yeah. In 8 hours, there may also be 4 or 3, but the minimum is 2.
We used to see a lot of the MotoGP talent moving freely between things like the Suzuka 8-hour back to MotoGP, and there'd be these select appearances in other championships. We're seeing less and less of that. Is there a reason behind that? Like, I haven't seen, the Vignalas or the Rossis or the Marquezes anywhere near an 8-hour, let alone a 12 or a 24, or.
Yeah, look, the explanation is very simple. The championship is so long. There are so many races, remember, or consider that when the others were raced, Duhan did race a lot of times, the championship was done out of 13, 15 races. Now there are 20. And Suzuka always happens the last weekend of July. It's exactly in the holiday period. This is reason number 1. Reason number 2, it's a very dangerous race, okay? Because, look, on the track there are 70 teams. 70 teams.
What?
So it's
do they all start at the same time, or is it staggered?
All the same time. So at the end,
you should see the start of one of those races.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Have a look at internet because it's amazing. And so at the end, it's a matter of time free and a matter of safety. That's why normally the second line rider of each factory go there. Like who? Paul Espargaro when he was in Tech 3, and Casey was once there and he crashed, as you know, but now I know that Suzuki pretended to Mir and Rins to race there to have a chance to win, but obviously this year it won't happen. But these two reasons are why we don't see anymore the super top riders.
So circling back to Pit Byra, we've got passionate and part of a very large shared cultural racing belief. So would that be fair to describe Pit?
Yes. Pit is a racer. And he still thinks like a racer,
Good to hear. That's why I've seen him interviewed, and he was one of the ones that was top of my list to get some more insight, because I've always had a sense of that, and it's good to know that my instincts sort of back me up on that one.
Yeah.
Over to you, Stu.
Yeah, same. I've always had a soft spot for that KTM team, and I've never really known where that comes from. It might be that Aussie underdog thing coming through, but yeah, they just strike me as such a passionate, collective family team.
And one interesting thing, sorry, Stu, from of Byra and the whole KTM, they don't lie. They don't lie. Let's say they don't.
That's a nice change.
They don't hide. If you ask them and they have to say this is red, they say this is red. They don't say this is orange. Yep. You understand? And this is something that always has a value.
Yep. It's vermilion, not red.
Stu,
Like your hair, Stu.
over to you for the last one.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. Okay. Alrighty. So the last Manuel incident for the week. Here we go. So this MotoGP legend, he's officially a legend, grew up a country boy, feeding the animals and riding dirt bikes around the farm. He progressed quickly to racing superbikes in his national series, and he won it all in just his second full year. He was then immediately promoted to ride for the Repsol Honda MotoGP factory team, where he stayed for 6 years and won one world title. You know who it is straight away. Go on.
Already goosebumps, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For the listeners, I'll finish this off because this is quite quite an emotional one.
Yeah.
So he then moved on to the Ducati MotoGP team, where he struggled for results following a string of crashes and bad luck. He stayed with Ducati until 2014, when he moved back to Honda to race for privateer team Aspar Honda. Still plagued by injury problems, he moved out of MotoGP in 2016, back into racing his beloved superbikes in the World Championship. It was while racing for the Tankata Honda team that he was tragically taken from us at age 35 in a road accident while cycling. And of course, we are talking about the Kentucky kid, none other than
Mr. Nicky Hayden.
Hayden,
very good. Wow. Look, for me, to talk about Nicky is... I have to breathe, you know.
It's emotional.
Yeah.
It's always going to be emotional, mate. He was such an amazing personality. I never met the guy. I would love to have met the guy. He seemed like such an incredible, engaging, funny, talented, open person. Incredible personality.
Yeah, he was.
Sorry, man.
He was. Look, Nicky was not specially talented. Once again, I have to disagree today with you.
Yeah.
But he was the most professional rider I have ever seen in my 27 years, you know. He did.
And ladies and gentlemen, but what, Manuel, before you go on, I just want to point out here that while we're doing this podcast, I'm looking. We're all obviously in different places around the world. I'm looking at a screen with my three co-hosts here, and I'm looking at Manuel, and I am seeing tears in Manuel's eyes right now. I am seeing emotion in Manuel's eyes, very, very much so.
Yes, Nicky was a special person.
You've obviously seen riders come and you've seen riders go. When did you realise that Nicky was someone that was a little different to who had come previously? What was a memory for that where you were, hang on, this is someone who needs to be viewed through a slightly different lens. This is someone that we've never seen before. When was that for Manuel? When did you realise that?
No, Nicky was a person that he had the word no was never in his. He was always ready. He had never a problem with any rider. He was always super fair. He was different. He was super professional. When he didn't look, where was it? The first time he rode on wet track, because in Andra in America in the past, when it was raining, they did not race. So when the
they just cancelled races.
When the Americans came over and they had to race in the rain, for them was like, wow. So the first time Nicky faced a track on the wet, it was on a test, I remember. But he was 15 seconds slower than the rest, 1.5 in one lap.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he finished 3 seconds later, behind. Huh. He was bam, bam, bam. He did on every test when the others did 25, 30 laps, he made 100 laps. So he worked so hard, and he never gave up, and he had never a wrong attitude. And yesterday or before yesterday, in another interview on the Italian TV, I had one of his managers, and I asked him about what were his remembers of Nicky, and he told me, "Look, I have never had a rider as professional as Nicky." He said, 2 weeks before arriving to a Grand Prix, he phoned to me and asked me which interviews I was going to have, which sponsor stuff I was going to have. He said, and there was never a bad face, never a bad face.
We can so take a page out of it. Isn't it such a common thing that people that have left this world, we could learn so much from them.
Yeah, no, Nicky was. And if I had to give one word to Nicky, for me, he's special.
Absolutely perfect.
Perfect. Manuel, that's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
It is. And just something that I wanted to sort of reflect on and put out to our listeners, if it's okay with you, Manuel, I do want to highlight the fact that Pecino GP is putting together a tribute for Nicky in the very near future. So that's something that,
look, I went through all the photos I have, because I was the first journalist that saw Nicky on a MotoGP bike, because he went for a private test the first time when he arrived in Grand Prix. It was sometime in January in the past, and the only journalist on the track was I. So I remember when he spoke to me, he said to me, "Hey, your English is very foreigner." So he probably didn't. Imagine him with his Kentucky accent. Yeah, he from Kentucky accent, and mine with my Moroccan English,
Yep. But you got by. And I just want to clarify for everybody that when David asks myself and Andra every week to put these Manuel Incident personalities together, Manuel does not know who these people are. And so I selected Nicky Hayden completely independently. I didn't know that Manuel was putting a tribute together for Nicky whatsoever. This is actually news to me right now. I'm just hearing about this. So that is completely kismet. That is amazing. I really look forward to seeing that, Manuel. Wonderful.
Yeah, remember in 2000 when Nicky won the championship, I think it was in 2006, right?
2006, correct.
Yeah, he arrived in Valencia, Andra. He had very, very few chances with Valentino Rossi. He was challenging Valentino Rossi. So his chances were
pretty much nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, not expected.
Yeah. At the track, there were the whole Hayden family. His two brothers were racers. His sister were racers. His mother did race, and they made all family there at the grid with almost no chances, and he won.
Yeah,
everything he won. Can you imagine how they felt? And it was like, okay, the family pushed him to get the champion. That was one of these days.
Dream.
Yeah, one of these days with goosebumps. Yes.
Have you heard, just to end this, have you heard Nicky's story of why he chose his number?
No, I think that it was his father's or not.
It was his father's number, but it was the reason why that he continued to use it. Because for Andrew, he had quite an unfortunate number in some regards, but very fortunate in others, of 69. But,
that's the best number you could have got, isn't it?
Exactly. And a lot of people just go, 69 because it's 69.
But his reasoning behind it was that once the wins were starting to come because his father was a racer and very much in the family, even when the bike crashed, his number had to be identifiable.
There you go.
It's the same upside down.
That's good.
That's gold.
It was only because
exactly
88
right.
was taken.
And as I said, that Kentucky draw saying, wherever the bike is, it has to be recognised.
Yeah. Oh, that's gold.
On that note, I think we'll end it there. I want to thank the audience. I also want to thank the co-hosts, Stu, Andra. Thanks for dialing in for another episode. Mr. Manuel Pecino himself, thank you so much for your insight. Once again, we promise we won't spring such an emotional name on you for the next time. Andra, sorry, did I miss something?
I just wanted to quickly give a shout out if I could. We posted a picture today. I realise it's probably a little while back now by the time this podcast comes out, but we posted a photo that Manuel tested me with of a young Olive Pedrosa, Elias and Stoner. he sent me the photo and said, here, try and work out who these people are. So while I did pretty well. I picked 2 of them off my own merit. I did post it on our Instagram and our Facebook, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Rafael Alcalia because he was the first one to comment and got them spot on. And also
well done, Rafa.
MotoGP Collect on Instagram, he also got them correct. So well done.
And where can they get us on the big IGs, Andra?
Dave,
you go.
No,
sorry,
Andra, I am smiling because you called one of them Olive, like the olive tree.
Yeah.
Well, you heard me say the name of that Le Mans place before. I'm like, if anyone
Mans an olive.
I'm very Aussie, a very Aussie young lady here, so you've got to be patient with me.
I'm just looking at the podcast results here for our listeners, and I can already see the French listener group diminishing as we speak. So
hey, I'm happy. If anyone wants to give me some tutoring, if you're over the age of 16 up to about 40, so I'm up for some tutoring.
Up to about 19.
Look, if you're liking what you're hearing at the moment, leave us a 5-star review on the Apple podcast. Tell your friends. We're available on all the podcast platforms. We've got the Castbox, the Castro, the Google Play, the Google Podcasts, all of them all the way down to TuneIn. We're on Instagram, the Pecino Report, Andra _ the Pecino Report, and QuickDraw _73. Or you can email us at thepecinoreport@pecinogp.com. Manuel is absolutely everywhere across the internet, spreading all of the good juice on what he's able to wring out of Dorna and MotoGP. Manuel, where can our listeners get more of the Pecino goodness?
Well, I have a platform called pecinogp, very original.
Easy to find.
pecinogp.com, and then there you can get whatever you want about MotoGP.
The inside scoop. That's why we're here.
All the good goss.
From Manuel's backyard.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've loved putting this together for you. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. See you then.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Another
Adios.
riveting week.
Manuel, do you have a funny hat you can wear?
And Fanny, what?
A funny hat.
Ah, hat. Hang on. Yes.
I need to get a VR46 hat.
We have a winner. Oh, well done.
Oh my god, that's
Turbocharged. Look.
Turn it on. Can you turn it on?
Coolest dude. It's got a solar panel.
Solar.
Oh
Yes,
my god.
It only works in the sun.
Oh my god, my mind is blown. Wait, I gotta take a photo.